1. Wake up with clear intention. Picture this for a moment. It's early, the sky still cloaked in that deep, blue stillness that only exists before the world fully wakes. There are no alarms screaming for your attention, no emails, no headlines, just quiet, a sacred quiet. And in that rare space, your breath falls into rhythm. Your thoughts aren't rushing, they're resting. You're not pulled, you're present. And in that moment, you realize something profound. This day, this life hasn't yet happened. You are standing at the gate of it, and how you choose to step through will shape everything that follows. One morning can change everything. But how many of our mornings truly begin like that? How often do we wake up not with our lives but at war with them? We roll out of bed, groggy, already behind. Instead of rising, we react. Instead of leading, we follow. We're dragged from task to task, half awake, half away, like leaves blown by a storm. And then we wonder, why do I feel lost? Why does the day feel so heavy, so directionless? It almost always begins here in the first few minutes after you open your eyes. That's the moment most people surrender their agency without even realizing it. But the Stoics, they saw the morning as a battleground, not against the world, but against forgetfulness, against drift, against the temptation to live on autopilot. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the darkest hours of war and political betrayal, reminded himself and us in Meditations, when you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Now pause for a second and consider that he wasn't writing this while sipping wine in a villa. He was enduring sickness, managing a crumbling empire, and preparing for battles that could cost him his life. And yet, he spoke not of dread, but of privilege. Why? Because to a Stoic, every day was a chance, not a guarantee, a gift, not something to sleepwalk through, but something to meet deliberately. That's where the first habit comes in. It's deceptively simple, but it's the foundation for everything else. Wake up with clear intention. Don't just open your eyes, open your mind. When you rise in the morning, ask yourself, what do I want this day to mean? How do I want to show up, not for the world, but for myself? What kind of person will I choose to be today, regardless of what happens? Because here's the truth. You don't get to control the weather, the traffic, the markets, or the mood of others, but you do get to choose how you'll carry yourself into all of it. And the Stoics knew that if you don't make that decision early, the world will make it for you. That's why Marcus didn't just meditate on lofty thoughts. He trained like a soldier. He wrote notes to himself. He reminded his spirit every morning what it stood for, because he understood something we often forget. Character isn't built in grand moments. It's shaped in the small, daily choices, especially in the morning. But let's be honest, that's not how most of us start. We wake up to a screen before our feet even hit the floor. We're reading news that stirs fear, messages that trigger stress, and updates that scatter our focus. We react before we reflect. We rush before we remember, and we wonder why the day feels like it owns us. But what if that could change? What if, starting tomorrow, you woke up not just to get through the day, but to give it meaning? What if your first thought wasn't, what do I need to do, but rather, who do I need to be? This is what it means to wake up like a Stoic. Not about cold discipline or robotic schedules. It's about reconnecting to your purpose, your values, your inner compass before the world tries to steal them from you. So try this. Tomorrow morning, before the noise begins, sit in stillness for 60 seconds and say to yourself, this day is mine. I don't control all of it, but I control how I meet it. Today, I choose clarity over confusion, action over reaction, purpose over distraction. It may feel small, but that simple act of setting your intention, like Marcus Aurelius once did, is a declaration. It's how you begin to reclaim your time, your energy, your life. It's how you take the first step toward living as a Stoic, not in theory, but in practice. And now that you've taken that first step, we move to the next habit. Practice negative visualization, because once you've decided how to live, you must prepare for what could go wrong. Let's continue. Wake up with clear intention. There's a quiet power in the early hours of the day, a sacred space before the world starts spinning, before the noise creeps in. The Stoics knew this well. To them, the morning was not simply the start of a new day, it was the start of a new battle, a fresh opportunity to live in accordance with nature, virtue, and reason. Why did they care so deeply about how they began the day? Because they understood a timeless truth. How you greet the morning is how you greet life. A chaotic start breeds a chaotic soul, but a deliberate beginning builds an unshakable mind. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, left us a window into his mind in the Meditations, a book never meant for the world, only for himself. There, in the quiet before dawn, he wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of, if I'm going to do what I was born for?" This wasn't poetic decoration. It wasn't positive thinking, it was preparation. A soldier sharpening his inner armor, a philosopher reminding himself of who he was and what he must do. And this practice, it's not just for emperors. I remember a time in my own life when everything felt uncertain. I was lost in noise, professionally successful perhaps, but personally anchored. Each morning, I would lurch out of bed, already consumed by emails, notifications, and schedules before my feet even touched the floor. I was reacting, not living. But then something shifted. I came across a passage from Epictetus and, on a quiet morning, I tried something different. I turned off my alarm. I sat at the edge of my bed, and I asked myself just one question. What kind of man do I want to be today? And in that moment, something clicked. That question cut through the fog. It silenced the panic. It gave me a compass. I didn't have all the answers, but for once, I had a direction. This is the Stoic way to wake up with clarity, with intention, with purpose. So how do we cultivate this habit in a world filled with distraction? Step 1. Begin in stillness. Before the phone, before the news, before you even speak. Sit in silence. 2 minutes, eyes closed. Focus on your breath. Let your first awareness be this: I am alive. This day is mine. It is not owed to me. It is a privilege. This moment isn't small. It is the foundation, because how you start echoes through everything. Step 2. Ask a grounding question. Don't wait for the world to tell you who to be. Decide for yourself. Ask: what am I here for today? What virtues do I need to practice? How can I lead myself before I lead others? These questions are not just reflections, they are anchors. They prepare your mind like a warrior prepares for battle. Remember what Epictetus taught. It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. So what if you trained your judgments before the day had a chance to twist them? This is the power of intention. It doesn't mean you'll avoid difficulty. It means you'll face difficulty as a Stoic, centered, deliberate, and calm. And no, you don't need an hour-long routine or a monk's discipline. You need 2 things: presence and purpose. Don't think of a Stoic like a Roman soldier. Before the horn sounded, he would lace his armor with care, not panic. He'd remind himself what he served, what he protected, what he must not become. We are not in ancient Rome, but we too have a battlefield: traffic, deadlines, heartbreak, uncertainty. The enemy isn't always outside, it's inside. Distraction, impulsiveness, forgetfulness of what matters most, and the weapon: clarity. So tomorrow morning, try this. Don't just wake up, rise, sit in the quiet. Ask yourself, what kind of soul will I carry into today? Let that question color everything. How you speak to others, how you face pressure, how you respond when things go wrong, because they will. If you don't set your direction, the world will do it for you. And as the Stoics remind us, no one should hold the pen to your life, but you. In the next part, we move from stillness to motion, from the soul to the body, where we explore how physical movement, when combined with Stoic awareness, becomes more than just exercise. Becomes a declaration of discipline. Begin the day with movement and discipline. If the first Stoic habit begins in the mind, the second must begin in the body, because philosophy, to the Stoics, wasn't some ivory tower abstraction. It was a lived experience, a commitment not just of thought, but of action. And action starts here, with the body, the vessel of the soul. Marcus Aurelius didn't become history's most revered philosopher king by reading books alone. He wrote deeply, yes, but he also marched through snow and mud, led soldiers into battle, slept on hard ground, and made decisions under the weight of empire. His reflections came from sweat, from illness, from fatigue. But every morning, before ruling the Roman world, he trained his body, because he understood discipline must be physical before it can be moral. And for a long time, I missed that point. I thought being stoic was mostly about thinking well, journaling, reflecting, staying rational. I ignored the body. I let my mornings slip into sluggishness. My energy began to fade, not suddenly but quietly. I stopped initiating my thoughts, lost clarity, and slowly, my will began to decay. Then one morning, I came across a passage from Epictetus that shifted something deep within me. You must build up your life action by action, and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible, and no one can keep you from this. It hit me like cold water. How could I build my life action by action if the very first action of my day was delay, avoidance, indulgence? That was the turning point. I realized my body must move before my mind starts drifting. Let me take you back to a specific morning, a memory etched in my bones. It was mid. The sky outside was still black, the windows frosted over. I had barely slept, and every cell in my body screamed for just 10 more minutes under the warm blanket. But in that moment, a line from Marcus struck me like a command whispered through time. When you have trouble getting out of bed, remember, you are rising to do the work of a human being, not a machine, not a servant of comfort, a human being capable of reason, of courage, of action. So I threw off the covers. My feet touched the icy floor. I stood up and stretched, breath fogging in the cold air. Not to impress anyone, not to punish myself, just to begin to honor the work of a human being. No fancy routine, no hour-long workout, just movement, a declaration that I would not be ruled by impulse. That act alone, rising when I didn't want to, shaped the trajectory of my entire day. It didn't just wake up my body, it activated my will. That's what the Stoics knew. Virtue doesn't live in theories, it lives in repeated action. In small moments where we overcome the pull of inertia, in the cold, reluctant choices that echo louder than words. So what can we do? Here's what I learned and what I now practice daily. 1. Choose intentional discomfort, not suffering for drama, but resistance for discipline. Wake up 30 minutes earlier than you want to. Stand barefoot on the cold tile. Take a cold shower. Walk in the rain. Fast for half a day. Every small act that pushes against comfort trains your soul to endure, and more importantly, to choose. Because when you choose discomfort, you are no longer its victim. 2. Create a ritual of motion. Don't worry about athleticism. It's not about building abs, it's about building autonomy. Stretch for 10 minutes, slowly and mindfully. Take a silent walk, no headphones, just presence. Do a few sets of push-ups or try simple breathing exercises. What matters is not intensity, it's intention. Every morning ritual says to the world, I have shown up not to be carried by life, but to meet it on my feet. 3. Attach meaning to motion. Don't move like a robot, move like a stoic. Say to yourself, this walk is my defiance against comfort. This breath is a sharpening of my attention. This cold water, this is how I remember I'm alive. Let your movements become sacred, not in formality, but in presence. Because every conscious act becomes an anchor against chaos. The modern world tells you to seek ease, to avoid struggle, to optimize for comfort. But Seneca warned us, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. You don't need disaster to prove yourself. Just choose a little resistance each morning and let it forge the blade of your soul. That's what this habit is about. Not productivity, not aesthetics, but something deeper. Becoming the kind of person who acts no matter how you feel. Discipline is freedom, because it breaks the chains of emotion, excuses, and laziness. So tomorrow morning when your muscles ache, when your thoughts say just stay a little longer, stop and listen. That is the voice you must rise against, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And because doing what's hard, when it's right, is how Stoics are made. Remember this, every time you resist the pull of comfort, every time you rise when you'd rather hide, every time you move when your mind wants to stall, you take one more step away from being ruled by impulse. and one step closer to becoming the master of your own life. Habit number 3, prepare the mind with morning reflection, a powerful way to anchor your awareness before the world demands your attention. Prepare the mind with morning reflection. The body may rise first, but if the mind is still asleep, then we are not truly awake. To the Stoics, a new day was not just something to stumble into, it was something to step into, armed and aware. And no morning was considered complete without one sacred ritual, intentional reflection, not the vague drifting of thoughts, not random ideas while scrolling through your phone, but deliberate, honest, structured examination, a kind of spiritual sharpening like weighting the edge of a sword before battle. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, did not begin his day with palace affairs or diplomatic meetings. He began it with a conversation with himself, with his soul. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly, but none of them can harm me." Strange, isn't it? A man who ruled an empire preparing for difficulty, not ease. And yet, that's exactly why he remained so calm, so composed. While the world around him boiled with chaos, he understood what many of us forget. You cannot control the storm, but you can control the sailor, and the sailor is your mind. When I first began my journey with Stoicism, I believed that clarity would come on its own, that if I lived mindfully, everything would just settle into peace. But real clarity, I discovered, comes through practice, through facing yourself each morning. In the mirror of truth, I began asking myself questions, not the soft ones, but the uncomfortable ones. What am I running from? What did I avoid yesterday, and why? Who did I blame instead of taking responsibility? And, most importantly, who do I want to be today, and what will tempt me to abandon that? At first it was confronting, but soon it became liberating, because this wasn't just journaling. It was training like a warrior visualizing his opponent before the fight, and that's exactly what the Stoics did. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It wasn't about being gloomy or paranoid. It was about building inner strength. Imagine a general rehearsing his battle plan, walking through every scenario, every ambush, every possibility of defeat. That's what the Stoics did each morning, except the battlefield was life itself. Seneca wrote, "A man who has prepared his mind beforehand robs future misfortunes of their power," and I've found this to be true. There was one particular morning not long ago. I had a long day ahead, a difficult conversation on the horizon, and little energy to face it. But I took 10 minutes before sunrise, lit a candle, and sat in silence. I asked, what will try to distract me today? What might frustrate me, and how can I respond with virtue? What part of my ego might get bruised, and can I remain grounded when it does? Later that day, when interruptions came, when the conversation turned sharp, I didn't lash out. I didn't shut down, because I had already seen it, not as a foreteller, but as a Stoic in training. And that's the heart of this habit. It's preparation, not prediction. It's setting the inner compass before the winds start to blow. So, how can you bring this into your own mornings? 1. Create a space for quiet reflection. Find 5 to 10 minutes early before the noise of the world takes hold. No phone, no email, just you, a journal if you like, and your thoughts. This is not time wasted. It is time invested in your clarity, your character, and your control, to ask meaningful questions consistently. Here are a few I return to, again and again. What virtue do I most need today? Patience, courage, humility. Where am I likely to slip into old habits? What kind of interruptions, disrespect, or discomfort might appear? How will I respond, not react? This is your chance to define your posture before the world challenges it. 3. Ground yourself in wisdom. Start your morning with a Stoic quote or a line from Marcus's Epictetus or Seneca, not just to admire their words but to embody them. Remind yourself, I cannot control what happens, but I can control how I choose to meet it. These reminders are like armor, light, invisible, but powerful. Think of your mind like a ship in a harbor. If you sail out each morning without checking your sails, without knowing the weather, without reviewing your map, then don't be surprised when you're thrown off course. But if you take those few sacred minutes, before anything else, to to prepare. You'll find you carry an anchor with you all day long. You'll meet challenges, yes, but you'll meet them on your terms. Modern life wants you to start your day with noise, with apps, with to-do lists, with everything but you. But the Stoic begins from within, before the world speaks. The Stoic listens to the voice inside, before the schedule takes over. The Stoic sets the tone, and so must we. So tomorrow, before the rush, before the screens, before the chaos, find a moment of stillness. Ask yourself, what kind of soul do I want to bring into this day? And what might try to pull me away from that? And when the day unfolds as it always does, you'll already be prepared. Because when you've rehearsed the storm, you do not fear the thunder. Reaffirming your duty and role, we now turn outward, from inner reflection to outer action. What does the Stoic owe to the world? And how can remembering our roles each morning bring meaning, purpose, and strength to every choice we make? Reaffirming your duty and role each morning. It is no accident that Marcus Aurelius began many of his mornings with reminders not of power, not of pleasure, but of duty. Before he judged others, before he ruled, before he acted, he reminded himself of who he was and why he was. He wrote not for others, but for himself. The meditations were his private field notes for the battlefield of life. And again, one theme returns. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. That line still gives me chills. Not go to work as an emperor, or go to work for success, but go to work as a human being. That is, to serve, to grow, to embody virtue in the mess of daily life. This habit, the simple practice of reminding yourself each morning of your role, may appear small, but over time, it becomes one of the most stabilizing forces in a Stoic life. Why? Because without it we drift, without it we forget, without it we chase every wind that blows across our path. Popularity, comfort, envy, comparison. But when you know your role, when you choose to remember it, you become unshakable. Let me share a morning ritual I still practice to this day. It's something I recommend to anyone walking a Stoic path. It begins with this one question: if I forget everything else today, what must I not forget about who I am? Some days the answer is, I am a man who chooses integrity over convenience. Other days it's, I am a voice of calm for others in chaos. And some days it's as simple as, I am a student of life. I must not waste the lesson. This kind of reflection doesn't take long, but its effects echo throughout the day. Because when we carry our roles with conscious awareness, we begin to move differently. We speak with more clarity. We act with more intentionality. We suffer with more dignity. The Stoics teach us that our roles are not burdens, they are blessings, but only if we choose to see them as such. A janitor who takes pride in cleaning a space for others is living with greater virtue than a millionaire chasing self-glory. A mother who wakes to tend her sick child at 3 a.m. is closer to the Stoic ideal than a philosopher who debates virtue but avoids responsibility. You see, it's not about the role itself. It's about the spirit in which we embrace it. If you're unsure of your role, if life feels uncertain or chaotic, Stoicism offers a beautiful solution. Start where you are. Serve where you stand. As Epictetus put it, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. This applies to our roles too. You may not have chosen every circumstance of your life, but you can choose how you show up in those circumstances. A Stoic doesn't wish for a different set of conditions. A Stoic rises to the conditions given. Let us also not forget the ripple effect of living our roles well. When you perform your duty quietly, honorably, without show, you are modeling Stoic strength for others. Your children see it, your co-workers feel it, even strangers sense it in your presence. Virtue, when practiced daily, becomes contagious. So tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings and the world tempts you with distraction, take just a few minutes. For this, sit quietly, take a breath, and ask, what is my role today? Then say it, write it, own it, because when you begin your day with duty, you anchor your life in something far more lasting than ambition. You anchor it in character, and from that anchor, every action, every conversation, every challenge becomes an opportunity to serve, to grow, and to fulfill your role. not perfectly, but purposefully. That, my friends, is the heart of Stoic practice, not retreating from life, but entering life fully awake, fully responsible, fully alive. That let us end this habit with one final reminder from Marcus Aurelius, one that echoes through the centuries with quiet power. Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. It is your duty to stand straight, not be kept straight by others. In the next and final part, we return to the inner citadel of the Stoic soul, our power to choose our response, no matter what the world throws at us. Aligning perspective, focus on what you can control. Focus only on what you can control in the end. No matter how beautifully you craft your morning, no matter how poetic your rituals, how noble your intentions, it will all unravel if your mind remains enslaved by things beyond your command. This is where many fall short. They rise early, they journal, they meditate, but then one piece of bad news, one harsh comment, one unexpected disruption, and their entire sense of peace collapses. So we arrive now at the final Stoic habit, the simplest, yet the most essential of all. Each morning, draw a line, decide what belongs to you and what does not, and then let go of everything outside that line. Picture this: you wake up still groggy and your instinct is to grab your phone. A message pops up, a headline bleeds anxiety. You scroll. You see someone criticizing an idea you shared yesterday before you've even had your coffee. Your mind is already spinning, hijacked by things you cannot touch, let alone change. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused? What if, in the quiet of the morning, before the world's chaos enters your space, you said silently to yourself, "Today I will rule only what is mine to rule. My thoughts, my actions, my responses, everything else I release." That's not just a comforting idea, it's the core of Stoicism. It's the wisdom carved into the very foundation of the philosophy by Epictetus when he taught, some things are up to us, and some are not. So, ask yourself, what is truly up to you? Your mindset, your intentions, your words, your daily conduct, the virtues you choose to embody: patience, courage, honesty, kindness, and what is not, the behavior of others, the rise and fall of markets, the weather, the judgments and gossip of the crowd, the past, the future, the outcome. Let me tell you a story, not from history but from my own life. Years ago I was invited to speak at a gathering, a room full of thinkers, leaders, and creatives. I poured my heart into the talk, weaving together philosophy, personal struggle, and insight. To me, it was the best I had ever delivered. But after the applause faded, a colleague pulled me aside and said, "You know, that was a bit too heavy. People just want something simple, not this philosophical stuff." He chuckled. I forced a smile. Inside I was burning: doubt, anger, embarrassment. That little voice whispered, maybe he's right, maybe I went too far. But then I remembered the Stoics. I asked myself, is this judgment mine to carry? Is his opinion something I control? No, it was his. What was mine? My response. So I looked at him, thanked him for his honesty, and they walked away, not in bitterness but in clarity. And in that clarity, I felt something profound. Freedom, single quotes, as what Stoic freedom truly is. Not the absence of criticism, not a life where everything goes your way, but a mind that knows what is truly yours and refuses to be shaken by the rest. Here's a powerful morning exercise you can begin tomorrow. Sit. Breathe slowly and ask yourself 3 questions. What burden am I carrying today that does not belong to me? What am I desperately trying to control but never could in the first place? What is within my power and how can I act on it with integrity and purpose? This moment of reflection can take just 2 minutes, but it can shift your entire emotional compass. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the stillness of the night, reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That kind of strength doesn't shout, it doesn't dominate, it doesn't need to prove itself. It simply refuses to be ruled by externals. To wake up like a Stoic means reclaiming that strength every single day, not with clenched fists but with open hands, not with ego, but with purpose, not through control, but through discipline. Let's revisit the journey we've walked together, the 5 Stoic morning habits. Set a clear intention. Wake with purpose, not passivity. Practice negative visualization. Expect life's resistance and meet it head-on. Recite your principles. Remind yourself of what you stand for. Remember your role. You're not here just for yourself, you're here to serve something larger. Focus only on what you can control. The rest, release it. These are not just habits. They are not hacks or tricks for productivity. They are inner disciplines, the armor of the soul. They protect your clarity, your virtue, your freedom. Final word, begin again each day. Sunrise is a sacred invitation, a blank canvas. What will you write upon it? You cannot revise yesterday. You cannot control the plot of tomorrow, but today this breath, this step, this decision is yours, and it is enough to wake up like a Stoic is to enter the world, not as a beggar of fortune, but as the author of your character. And when you choose discipline over distraction, presence over panic, virtue over vanity, you become, in the eyes of the Stoics, invincible. Not because you are untouched by life, but because you cannot be broken by it. Call to action. So tomorrow, when the alarm chimes, don't just wake, rise. Stand with the ancients. Walk in the footprints of Marcus, Seneca, Epictetus. Say to yourself, this day is mine to live, not to control everything but to control myself. You were not born to drift. You were not meant to be swayed by every wave of life. You are here to live with intention, to act with courage, to love with wisdom, to let go with grace. Thank you for walking this path beside me. If this message resonated, share it. Let others walk this ancient path with us. And remember, the Stoic path begins not with theory but with action. So go, live your morning and your life like a true Stoic. The world awaits. So does your higher self.